Hey everyone, it's Jamie from Independent Street Tarot and Seasons and Ritual, and I'm here to talk about the solstice, the winter solstice that's happening tomorrow on December 21st. I am filming this tonight. It's Friday night, December 20th, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the mythology first, and then a little bit about what is happening astrologically in the sky at this time. So, first and foremost, let me just say I love the solstices. They happen, once every 6 months. So we have our summer solstice, which takes place in Cancer, and then we have the winter solstice that takes place in Capricorn. So the first day of Capricorn season, it is marked by the shortest day of the year, which means then we are start going back towards the light. And Capricorn season, Capricorn is the third earth sign. So it is the most mature of the earth signs. Um, and the solstice, the winter season is Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And all of those signs are the third signs, respectively, earth, air, and water. And these are all signs of mastery. And not to say that the other signs, you have to master those signs too, but these signs, I say this knowing some Pisces friends, but they should have some degree of maturity to them. Now, as I talk about astrology and vibes, there's high vibes and low vibes. So I do have some very mature Pisces friends, and maybe not some other ones. But at this time, when we go into Capricorn, Capricorn season, Capricorn is the sign of work. Capricorn is the sign of mastery and discipline. And I think this is important because I do feel like we are rewriting many myths, right? We're in our own hero's journey, but especially the myth of Capricorn. This is the first time that Pluto is out of Capricorn for 15 years. And I think this gives us a time of reflection, which bodes well with the winter solstice. So solstice just means the sun stands still, which I just think is so beautiful. If we just take this time to stop and reflect. This is a busy time for everyone. I was talking to my neighbor just before I decided to start recording this, and she said, what should I do for the solstice? And I was like, the best thing you can do for the solstice is just reflect that it's the solstice. If you just take a time, take a few deep breaths, understand that we are now shifting into the winter season. Understand now that while we think of the dark of winter, we're actually going back towards the light, which is good because it's getting dark here, 5:15 or so. Um, and just taking that pause to be in touch with yourself. That's the best thing you can do for any solstice, but especially the winter solstice. It's like, let's get cozy, as they say, it's cozy season. The beautiful thing too to me about the winter solstice is that on the 21st, that denotes the beginning of Yule, the Yule season. So here we are. Um, and there's also the wild hunt that is associated with this time. And I encourage you guys to look up the wild hunt. It is it's Norse mythology, or Celtic. It just depends on because everything kind of gets mushed together. But it is this idea that the dead, especially people that may have transitioned or passed in their youth or younger in life, they get to go on this wild hunt, and that's just what it is. It's wild, and they go all through the town and they go all over the earth and they get to write again and they scourge the area of any evil spirits. And so this would be a time if you wanted to leave out something special or make an offering on your altar um, to the wild hunt and to remember maybe loved ones or friends that transitioned early and then see them still being helpful, still being wild, still living, even in the afterlife, because this is that time of reflection. I also like to think of, Christmas trees and or Yule trees, however you want to say it, and light those up, right? Because it is this welcoming of the light coming back. Um, the best part, I think, about the solstice is just remembering that we're going into the winter season. And the winter season to me, it's always really quiet on the top, but there's a lot of activity on the bottom. If you think of like bear, or bears hibernating, going into caves, like from the outside, you don't see too much, but on the inside, a lot's going on. And I feel like that is also how I feel about winter. Maybe on the surface, things are really quiet. Maybe there's a lot of snow on the ground. But what's happening beneath the ground is really important. And then, of course, we could say what's happening above is also really important. So, as above, so below. But the main thing that I want to stress for going into the winter season is just this idea. It doesn't necessarily have to be of slowing down, but just being aware. We don't have that much light. Um, we do get to experience the moon more often and for longer periods of time, which is great for me or anyone else that loves the moon. Um, but just pay attention to your body and how it feels. And again, Capricorn, it is the sign of work. And we can go now, I guess, into the astrology. It is the sign of mastery and discipline. And one thing that I think we forget about Capricorn, even though it is the sea goat, we kind of neglect the sea part, right? Which would mean feelings. We think of Capricorn because it is an earth sign, just working away, very logical, very practical, very diligent. But this is a time now, especially since Pluto has moved out, to start to remember the feelings of Capricorn. Like if you talk to Capricorn, I'm sure, I mean, if you talk a lot of signs, they always make jokes about like they have no feelings. But I feel like Capricorns in particular are pretty good about just kind of eating it and getting things done. And where we are now in this dawning, if you will, in this age of Aquarius, feelings is where it's coming back. This heart energy, higher heart energy, opening up those spaces. And so the way that we work and we keep working moving forward is going to be different because we're going to be coming out of that logical brain, if you will, and moving more into just energetic spaces. And it's kind of hard to talk about. Um, because we've just been taught to be logical our whole lives. And there's still going to be that logic there. At the same time, we have to start integrating the heart and the head. And that's how I see Aquarius. But I also think it's really important to start remembering this within Capricorn season because Capricorn can scale the mountains, but it can also swim the seas. And so, because it is this idea of dedication in work, in mastery, it is asking us to do this now, to start talking about this now, to seeing ourselves as a more holistic um, person instead of just being kind of a one note or a one hit wonder, right? Like we're remembering like, oh, I do have feelings and I do have thoughts and am I going to be able to make these work together instead of again just this idea of eating it and getting things done or just being a machine. It's really becoming clear we are humans with two hands and there's only 24 hours in a day. And I think it's really interesting how this entire time that Pluto was in Capricorn, we really did come to this just peak of capitalism and kind of gluttony, quite honestly. And Capricorn's ruler, Saturn, has been sitting in Pisces and is still in Pisces. And Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. And Pisces, in its highest self, right, is all about letting go and this rebirth. And so and then Pisces and its lower is that illusion, right? And so we've been kind of in this illusion of work, right? If we just work harder, if we just did this more, then we would get all these riches. And now it's become abundantly clear, it really doesn't matter how much we work, right? Like right now things seem a little tipped in some other people's favors, right? I'm not and not saying that's going to be like that forever, but what has come to light, right? Like especially here in America, is all these billionaires, um, and how they've worked versus how we have been told how to work. Um, and now we've come to this point, right? Especially with COVID and everything else about how do we want to work moving forward? There's lots of different ways to work. We can telework, you know. Um, we don't always have to work from the office. What's the point of working, 80-hour weeks if you're still not being able to make ends meet, right? And so this whole idea of work is being challenged, um, and changing. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact of Saturn sitting in Pisces and holding that space. So if that illusion, that lower illusion comes in to try to make you say, "Oh no, you just have to keep working," or my favorite is anyway, I won't say that one. Okay, but like just have to keep working in order to get these riches. Um It's saying, no, no, you don't. Like, you need to be present and see how you feel. And what is it that you actually want to work on? And a lot of this is coming through because our nodes, right? The North Node is still in Aries, and the South Node, and the North Node is what we're moving towards, and the South Node is what we're leaving behind. And that South Node is in Libra. And right now the nodes are at 2 degrees. So 2 degrees of Aries and 2 degrees of Libra. And so the nodes start at the hardest point and then end at the easiest point. So I feel like as of now, before the nodes and that North Node will move into Pisces pretty soon. But by now, because we've been talking it, because the nodes stay about, I think, 16 or 18 months in a sign, um, we know we need to show up authentically. We are having an easier time knowing who we are. And we are getting rid, that South Node in Libra, is that just people pleasing and compromising, just like to not rock the boat, right? To keep things calm. And at this point in our lives, we're not doing that anymore. Like we know what's the point, right? What's the point of me keeping my mouth shut? What's the point of me working 80 hours? And we're at an impasse here. That's what's happening during this Capricorn season. And so there is this time during this season that we do kind of need to reflect on where we do feel masterful, right? If Capricorn season is mastery, um, where do we feel masterful? My neighbor is a hairdresser. She's a really good one. And her husband is a tattoo artist, and he's a really good one. Um, and are they masters at their craft? I would say so. They might be like, no, but they've been doing it now for years. And I always think too, as we're getting out of that patriarchal, toxic patriarchy, age of Pisces, being in that illusion that you weren't good enough or you weren't a master in something. And look, there's many layers of mastery. Okay. So it's not like I did it, I'm done. We all keep learning, we all keep taking classes. Um, but it's okay to also say, like, I've been disciplined in this. And it's also okay to say, like, where can I be more disciplined in this? Right. And maybe discipline to you now is waking up and figuring out what you're going to do this day and getting that done. I have a really good friend who has to take care of her parents. Her father passed away, and now she's taking care of her mom. And she was like, you know what? I just got over feeling bad because I wasn't marking off 30 things from my list. She's like, now I just get up, I pick maybe 3 things that I feel like doing that day, and I get them done. Right? mastery, right? She's getting mastery over her own life, her own feelings, how she wants to get things done to her that can keep her disciplined, right? And so it's this new conversation. It's this new way of seeing ourselves as abundant because earth signs are always abundant, you know? Um, yeah, the King of Pentacles, the Queen of Pentacles, right? Um, abundance, money, love, time, Ace of Pentacles. But it's important to go back and seeing things in a more holistic way. And I really think because we're towards the end of the nodes, we're seeing who we are now. We're showing up more authentically. We really do understand the importance of that. We really do understand not people pleasing. You know, no one's perfect sometimes, you know, but kind of again, especially where we are in America, we're at an impasse. Um, and everything's sort of pushing us, or let's just say a gentle shove into holding space into where we need to be now and where we need to move into the future. So there are two T squares and one trine happening with this on this area of the solstice. And we have to remember Pluto is still at 0 degrees of Aquarius. And this is still this beautiful reset, karmic reset point. It is time to really take that time, reflect, see where you are now. Um, understand this idea of I'll go back to the wild hunt that energy is always moving. Nothing really dies. We're going into winter where everything goes into hibernation in order to come out a different way. Um, it is again beautiful that we end. Well, the zodiac New Year starts in Aries, so I was going to say we end in Pisces, right? Which makes sense because it is this idea of that Christ consciousness in the sense that one thing ends and another thing begins, even if it, you know, you don't come back looking like yourself, right? Like, so you know, Jesus supposedly shed the skin suit and then, you know, came back as, I don't know, not the Holy Spirit because he was already around. Um, but is that idea of transitioning and rebirth. And so we're going into this Capricorn season. We're going into this winter season, planting this huge new seed at 0 degrees of Aquarius. It's going to go deep into the ground, right? And we're getting rebirthed. Pluto is going to be squaring Mars. I think he already kind of is right now. Um, and Mars is in Leo, and before Mars moves back into Cancer, which is very interesting because again, summer solstice is always in Cancer. The moon was in Cancer when Pluto moved into Aquarius, and then Mars is going to be in Cancer. Cancer is a cardinal sign. It's cardinal water. It represents the mother. It represents the womb. Um, it represents the home. It represents safe places, right? Um, and to me, Mars moving in there is really going to rev up this divine feminine energy, right? Our movement, Mars is that masculine movement. Mars to me is the spiritual warrior now. He's always been known as the god of war, but now I see him as the spiritual warrior. So he could, I guess, still be the god of war, but it's a more of a spiritual war. And I don't mean like a religious war. That's not what I mean. I mean like he has conviction, like he understands there's accountability. There's a reason, you know, he thinks things through instead of before where it was just really off the cuff. Just like that toxic energy, didn't care, no accountability. Yeah, whatever, I did it. He's not like that anymore. And so him moving back into Cancer and having to spend all this time in this water sign, to me, again, moving with our feelings, moving with intention. We're in Capricorn season, right? The sea goat. We've got the water there. How are we going to work? We're going to work with our feelings. We're going to work with our intentions. We're going to work within this idea of energy. And a lot of us have been working on this for years, and it's go time. You guys, it's really go time. Um, because what's happening is that we're going to have to learn how to detach, but also and then move with discernment. And when I say we work with discernment, it is this idea of um I always say it's this two, I should have got her out, but it's the two of swords energy where she's sitting there and she's blindfolded and she's holding her swords, and behind her is the water. And so she's in a state of meditation. It's a crescent moon. So it's this idea of like this new moon, or it's about to be yeah, it's like it was these, so it's becoming out of a new moon or about to be a new moon. But she's sitting in meditation. She has swords. Swords is that mental energy. The water's behind her, so those are her feelings. And the swords are impossibly large, always. So the idea would be like you couldn't I mean, the idea would be like trying to hold them should be hard, but because she's in meditation, right, and she's in that other space, she's able to think about what she wants, and how it makes her feel, and that's how she's going to move forward through it instead of seeing with her eyes, and being like, oh, well, I have to do it this way because what I'm seeing is showing me this. So we're moving into this new realm of working towards what we want, um, through energy. And don't let this seem too daunting. I know like a lot of you have been listening to my channel for a while, but I also know a lot of you have been working with this for this with this idea, and it's here. So we are kind of breaking we're kind of breaking through and moving away from this idea of just complete logic, and book smarts, but we're not moving away from being practical. Okay, it's all got to work together. So we are going to be moving forward. We are going to be working, but we've got to bring in this water, and which now is being reminded that Pluto rules Scorpio, right? And so Scorpio's fixed water. And so Pluto's ruler is, excuse me, Scorpio's ruler, Pluto, is in Aquarius. And then Scorpio's ancient ruler is Mars. So this idea of Mars going into a water sign isn't really out too far out of the realms, because Mars, if it used to um, be the ruler of fixed water, moving into cardinal water, he remembers. Mars remembers. So this is a good time, I think, to work with that masculine side of us. And so in working with that masculine side of us is this idea of moving with compassion, moving with empathy, um, moving with what's the word I'm thinking of? We'll come back to it. Conviction. It's conviction. So, and we're getting used to this idea in this Capricorn season. We're getting used to this idea with this solstice, um, the shortest time because we're moving back to the light. So let's talk about the first T square. I have my notes. The T square is the Sun, Aries, and Libra. The Sun being in Capricorn, um, Aries. So it's a T square with the nodes. So the north node is at 2 degrees of Aries, and then the south node's at 2 degrees of Libra, right? And so again, it is lighting up this idea of how do we move more authentically? Why is it okay not to be a people pleaser? Why is it okay not to compromise? Why is it okay to rock the boat? And a lot of times we might think, oh, I don't want to rock the boat because someone's going to get upset. When actually, if we bring something up to someone's attention, then they're actually able to think about it in a different way. So then we can get things done, actually moving a lot smoother. So you guys kind of think about that, put that in your back pocket. Um, and when this is happening, because this is on the world, this is on the world axis, this is on the world stage. And because when the sun squares the nodes, it is a choice point, but it's sort of like a choice. Well, it's a choice point for us, but it's a choice point on the world stage. So we're all kind of picking, we've kind of come to an impasse, right? And this impasse of being, what do we stand for? What are our morals? Where am I not paying attention? Um, how do I want to move forward? Because right now we've got a lot of information that's going to be coming in. And when I talk about information coming in, you know, it's not necessarily like being overloaded with news channels or stories about drones or things like that. What I'm talking about is all this information's coming in because we're paying attention to ourselves. Use this time to reflect on your life. Use this time to think, I did it this way this long. How did it make me feel? How can I move forward being different? Because right now, Jupiter is squaring Saturn. And that, again, Jupiter is in Gemini. Gemini, is Mercury, and that's communication. Mercury's gone direct, thank you, Jesus. But Jupiter gifts luck expansion, right? He's retrograde right now. Saturn, um, what do you call it? Structure, boundaries, right? So they're squaring each other. And so it's asking us, where do we need to hold ourselves accountable? And if we want to keep moving, how can we restructure things? Okay. And this is coming in millions of different ways. Okay. It could come in health and fitness. It could come in your job. It could come in with your household. It could come in with, you know, your life. I mean, but the square that's happening is just saying we're at a choice point. This T square that's happening, it's saying we know who we are now. Um, we understand why we cannot keep quiet, right? And this is part of the revolution, right? That Pluto and Aquarius. But it's also like your own personal revolution. How is it that you want to move up? What is it that you need to restructure within yourself in order for you to move forward more successfully, right? Because we are in Capricorn season, and Capricorn does want to work. Capricorn does want to master things. Capricorn does want to be disciplined. But it's important to find what that looks like for you, what that sounds like for you, and what that feels like for you. Do I feel like I was disciplined today? I went to Orange Theory in the morning, ate a burrito at lunch. I did feel disciplined, okay, because I got up and went and worked out, right? But that might not be for someone else. Age of Aquarius is about the individual first, your own uniqueness, how you show up, your own light, right? Which is why that North Node is at that end of Aries, showing who we are. And then it's about the collective. It's knowing like when you feel good about yourself and you're able to show up for others and you're able to see their uniqueness. You're able to see how they shine their own light. This age of Aquarius in Pluto and Aquarius is going to start highlighting that more and more and more. So see what these choice points are right now, and especially in Capricorn season. I don't mind Capricorns. My best friend's a Capricorn. I just show up. She's got everything worked out. It's the best. Okay, so let's talk about this mutable T square. And it's between Saturn, Jupiter, and the moon. Okay. The moon is going to be in Virgo tomorrow. Saturn, Capricorn's ruler, is in Pisces, like we said, and then Jupiter's in Gemini. Um, and so Saturn, again, Saturn used to get a bad rap. He was old man time. But I like Saturn because again, I like boundaries, I like stability, which people might find that hard to believe because I've always been kind of like a bon voyant, bon vivant. Was it bon? I don't know. One of my friends called me that one time and I just thought it was so nice. But there is this idea of like liking structure, and I'm also an Aquarius, so but it is this idea of liking structure and liking boundaries because the idea that the cosmos is endless, right? And so your boundaries could be really far, or they can be close, but the energy in the space that's of the molecules, there's so many, right? So it doesn't matter. Boundaries are good. And so Saturn will be opposing the moon with this mutable T square, because Pisces is mutable, Virgo is mutable earth, and Gemini is mutable air. So it's giving us this room to move, right? But when the moon and Saturn oppose each other, it's it's got a kind of a come to Jesus effect, right? Like this is where we're at. And it's not one to, I mean, it could, I guess, kind of freak you out, but the idea is like, this is where we're at. Again, we're going to have that square, that Jupiter and Saturn square. So how do we need to move forward to restructure stuff? You know, if we don't restructure, um, things are just going to things are going to stay the same, or they're not going to progress to where you want them to. So use this. You've got two T squares. You've got the one um helping you with the sun, the sun, your masculine side, right? This is who you are now. This is how you're showing up. And then you've got your feminine side, right? The sun, I mean the moon opposing Saturn, saying, okay, this is where we're at. How do we move ourselves forward? And you can have a good conversation with that. Um, the T squares, again, because there's a square and because there's oppositions, like that could cause some tension. But at the same time, it could just be like very inspirational. Okay, what do we want to build next? Like, where do we want to go? Oh, wait, I do know how to do this. Or, oh, wait, I do have friends that know how to do this, right? Go back to this idea of your mastery, right? Or what you want to master. Or actually, you do know a lot in this subject. Um, and keep with that energy, right? And see how it makes you feel. We've got to go back into doing these feelings. Like, and then when you're working with this idea of discipline, is the idea of true story. I had to go get Christmas cards. And I had to go to one of my groups and I had to get a ornament for the group exchange. So I ran up the street up here to TJ Maxx, found myself a cute little candle as always. And then I was like, I need to get Christmas cards. And so there was a Michael's there. Um, and I was like, so I walked up to the Michael's and I was walking in there. It looked bananas, because it's the Christmas season. Who's not crafting? And I was like, I don't even know where to look for these cards. So it's kind of just like, I was like trying to talk myself out, like, Jamie, you can just get up and go tomorrow. Like you can go to Target or something. Because I went to a couple, I usually like to shop local. But the stores that I went, they didn't have new cards. So, and then I was like, no, James, just stay here and, finish this out because I really wanted to leave. I was like, you're already here. And so then in my mind, I'm like, okay, am I talking myself too much? Like, should I just cut bait and go? And then when I went around, there was a bunch of Christmas cards. I bought them and then they were like doubly on sale. So it was like an extra holiday for me. But it was that idea of just staying a little bit disciplined. But I was also noticing how I felt when I was giving myself the pep talk. If this was probably like sheer pain, I probably would have just left. But, I wasn't getting down on myself. I was like, you don't know where these things are. Let's just take a little look, see. You're already out, you guys get it. So when I talk about like using feelings, see how you're feeling while you're doing things. Because if you notice how you're feeling, how you're doing things, you then are present, and then you might notice that there might be an old story running in the back of your head that you no longer believe that you need to get rid of. And that's going to be huge. That's also this idea of mastery of self, mastery of working, how you want to work moving forward, but understand the integration of working and feeling at the same time. Because there's just sometimes I was like at the gym, I did not want to do another squat. Okay. And I don't think I did. I don't think I did. Maybe I did, but I don't think I did, right? But I was having these feelings. But then I was also making sure I mean, my legs were tired. But I was just making sure like the story in my brain wasn't like you're old, you need to be working out more, you wouldn't feel like this, though none of those stories were happening. It was like I can't do another squat. I'm okay. And the world kept moving. So this is the more we get in touch and getting in alignment with our feelings, we're going to move a lot faster. I really believe that is the story of Mars and Cancer. And Mars opposes Pluto before it goes into Cancer. And we'll talk a little bit about that because, people are all up in arms. But again, um, Pluto is Scorpio's ruler, and Mars used to be Scorpio's ruler. So I think they're going to have a different conversation. And this is going to happen on January 3rd, I'm pretty sure, before Mars retrogrades back into Cancer. So I just don't want everyone to like freak out. Okay. It's so important to stay present. It's so important to get back in touch with our bodies, get back in touch with our feelings, get back in touch with our hearts. And so this leads us into the trine that's going to be happening. And it's a super beautiful trine. And the trine is between Jupiter, who's in Gemini. Jupes has been coming in strong this time. Venus, who's in Aquarius, and then Chariklo. And Chariklo is, I believe, a meteor. Chariklo, I think she's a meteor or an asteroid. I think she's an asteroid. And I usually don't talk about asteroids because our eyes glaze over anyway when we go into this stuff. But I thought this was really beautiful because it involves Venus. And you guys have to remember when Pluto moved back into Aquarius to stay there, Venus was in Capricorn. So Pluto had moved out of Capricorn and then Venus went into Capricorn. And she was just like, you did it. You did it, Capricorn. Pluto's gone. And here I am with all my loving energy, with all this beautiful divine feminine energy. We're going to be working differently. We got this, right? And so now Pluto is in Aquarius, and then here comes Venus right into Aquarius again. And we have to remember Venus and the moon were the only two planets that had talked to Pluto and Aquarius when it went in there the first or second time. Okay. So I can't stress enough about this feminine energy. I cannot stress enough about the intuition coming back in, feeling better into our bodies, and how this is all going to be working together in order to move us forward more quickly. Because if we do go back to this idea of that age of Pisces and being in delusion and illusion, and we were just fed over and over again. The only way you move forward is if you just put in, 70 hours a day, and we've all been putting in 70 hours a day, and we're like, what the fuck? Here we are. But yet we see this guy, and they're way like there's not even like it's so that illusion is gone. The new way of working, the new way of showing up, the new way of being is with this heart energy. And I wouldn't even say the new way. It's probably like the old way. What's old comes back around. But we're just now in this age of Aquarius. We are all now vibrating higherly, so we're able to bring in these new dimensions as we talk about. But back to this trine, and then we'll wrap it up. Chariklo is the wife of Chiron. And this is the reason why I decided to talk about this trine. As remember, Chiron is the wounded healer. We now refer to him as a great healer. He was a centaur. She's a centaur. Chiron is in Aries, and Chiron is sitting at the point, I think 19 degrees of Aries, where we had the solar eclipse, right? The big eclipse back in April. And so he's working on that spot. And then we have beautiful Chariklo in Aquarius, where Venus is and where Pluto is, right? And we're in this age of Aquarius, and they're trining Jupiter, who is in Gemini. Gemini is ruled by Mercury. Mercury's communication. But Jupiter is gifts, luck, expansion, right? Faith. In Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is justice. But Chariklo is a midwife. And I wrote this down, and I got this from Pam Gregory, actually. She's a midwife, and so she's a midwife to life and death. She's the midwife to shifts of consciousness and healing. Um, and I think this is really important because it goes back to this thing that I've been kind of working with, Chiron was the great healer and the fact that he knew all the herbs and plants on the earth, and that's how he healed people. But his wife, Chariclo, healed people because she was able to help them. She was able to hold that space while they shifted their consciousness. She was able to hold that space while they went from life to death or death to life, right? And it's that divine feminine energy that holds those liminal spaces, right? When we talk about um, the high priestess, right? It's that otherworldly, it's that energy, right? While that masculine mastery to me is more of this 3D realm, which is very important because that's the realm we live on. Even if we are bringing in different dimensions, they have to work together. And so it is this idea of Chiron holding that space, bringing in where that solar eclipse was. And then here is his wife, Chariclo, in Aquarius, holding that space so those old things can die, so we can shift this consciousness. And it's with Gemini, with Jupiter there, so we can expand this. It is with Venus, right? Who is love, who is self-worth, who is creation. So this, to me, this beautiful feminine energy is able to usurp any of this other negative or lower energy if we just kind of sit with it. I wrote down because Chariclo is putting us in healing, and even though she is in she's trining with Gemini. We don't have to put ourselves in this duality. We don't have to put ourselves in duality. We can pick this path. We can understand what comes with the path, and we can keep working within that path. And to do that, we're going to have to use discernment, and we're going to have to use detachment, because the idea of duality, perpetuating things that we don't like, right, in order to make a point. And we can start perpetuating things we do like in order to make a point. And maybe I'll get better speaking about duality too as we move out of duality. Fingers crossed. So I work with this beautiful trine with Venus, Jupiter, and Chariclo. And if you guys have time, look up Chariclo. It's really it's such a beautiful energy. And again, to me, it is this idea of that masculine and feminine that we both have within us, no matter how we present, working together. But that idea of that feminine energy that's just more ethereal, right? That does hold these spaces in order for that movement to come in. So, okay, friends, thank you for sitting with me through this. This is going to be a beautiful solstice. I believe it's going to be cold here in New Orleans. It's supposed to be cold tonight, like 38 degrees. That's cold for us here. Oh, which reminds me, I better go move the basil in, and chilly tomorrow, but then it'll start to warm up. So if you want to light a candle for the solstice, if you want to bring candles to your altar or just put them out and let them be in the solstice, charge them with the solstice energy. It's always good. So it's every 6 months. So at Cancer, the summer solstice, things are blooming, and then we get to the winter solstice, and then we see, okay, well, what do we need to let go of? What do we need to move around? Um, maybe what do we need to work on more? So be gentle with yourselves. We are in a huge shift. The astrology says so, you know. Um, and this is a time to really get back in touch with ourselves, to really get back in touch with this masculine and feminine with us moving in tandem. Um, but also just a time, to rest, because we really have to get into this idea of work and working differently and what that means for us. Okay, friends, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you guys all have a happy holiday. I'm going to be relaunching my website soon, so maybe I'll make a little video for that. It won't be this long, that's for sure. Um, and I would like to for you guys to see that. And then, I'm sure I'll come on before the new year, but really enjoy the Yule season. Get yourself some good smelling stuff. Get cozy, as I like to say. Start to listen, allow winter to be quiet, allow winter to bring in that silence, allow winter to allow us to go within and see all the work that's being done that maybe no one else sees, but we do. Okay, guys, have a great solstice, and I will talk to you soon.